What are your thoughts? It's real deep, right? It's real deep. It's not about the back fat. That part. It's not about the back fat. It's about being rejected, according to the man. Let's see, what did that? I underlined a lot. It says rejection is deeply painful. How do y'all feel about that? Do y'all feel like rejection is deeply painful? Rejection is deeply painful. This book is letting me know there's nothing wrong with me. It was them. I don't have to change how I'm vulnerable with people. Yes! Yes, that is right, Jamila. Yes. You start to understand how other people's shame is. When you start dealing with your self stuff, then you understand other people. So you understand how people are responding to their shame. And what we talked about last week was how people will shame you in areas that they feel shame in areas that they feel vulnerable. So if somebody feels some type of way about their body image, they'll shame other people about body image, right? So wherever they're most sensitive, wherever they will feel deeply pained, if they're rejected in that area, that's where they will shame you at, okay? That's where they'll shame you at. If it's parenting, if you feel shame around your parenting, you're going to shame other people for their parenting. If you feel shame around your sexuality, you're going to shame other people about their sexuality. So let me go back to the 12 areas of shame that she mentioned at the beginning of chapter 3. I believe it's the beginning of chapter 3. Or it might have been chapter 2. I think it's in chapter 3. Okay, the 12 shame categories. Appearance and body image, money and work, motherhood/fatherhood, family, parenting, mental and physical health, addiction, sex, aging, religion, surviving trauma, being stereotyped or labeled. These are the 12 shame categories that have emerged, okay? So if anybody's feeling shame about those areas, they tend to shame others in that same area, okay? It's particularly women will shame about body image, right? And men and women shame differently. And that's what she talks about, the main categories based off gender, Okay, so it says cultivating intimacy, whether it's physical or emotional. It's almost impossible when our shame triggers meet head on and create the perfect shame storm. When you're not allowing yourself to have the courage to be vulnerable in the physical or emotional state, it's impossible because the shame triggers are there. So intimacy doesn't exist. When you allow shame to take over your life, when you allow shame to have control, when you're not putting words to the shame is in control when you don't put words to it. When you allow shame to control your life, you are cutting yourself off from intimacy. Intimacy is connecting with another person. It's not just physical, it's also emotional. We actually desire to experience emotional intimacy more than physical. We think because we're being physical that automatically means intimacy, but it's not. It's not at all. The emotional basis is the most prominent form of intimacy. That's showing up and being who you are emotionally. Just showing up. Like, hey, this is who I am. This is who I am, right? Sometimes these shame storms are directly about sex and intimacy, but often there are underlying gremlins wreaking havoc in our relationships. On the surface, the thing that may trigger it may be the intimacy, it may be the sex, but underlying, it goes back to all those categories we talked about. Common issues include body image. That was the first thing on the 12 shame categories. Aging, appearance, money, parenting, motherhood, exhaustion, resentment, and fear. That's really what causes shame. Those are the gremlins that are in your mind. They're saying those negative things to you. Those ants, as they're called, automatic negative thoughts, okay? It says, when she asked men and women and couples how they practice wholeheartedness around these very sensitive and personal issues, one answer came up again. Honesty, loving conversations that require major vulnerability. That means having the courage. It takes courage to just show up and say, hey, this is what's going on inside of me. And if somebody responds a certain way, it's not about you. It's about their own shame. It's about them disconnecting and not wanting to tie into vulnerability and into intimacy. It's a protection mechanism for themselves. Because no matter if we can relate to somebody's story or not, or to their experience or not, what we can relate to is the emotion of shame, because we all have experienced shame. We've all experienced shame. So whether or not I've been through the same trauma as somebody and it's being triggered and this person is talking to me about their emotional experience, I don't have to go through that trauma, but I know what shame feels like, and I can understand and I can have empathy for them because I know what shame feels like. I know what that feels, and that's where the connection happens. That's when you connect with another. When you allow shame to rule your life, you are disconnected. You are completely disconnected. And that's why she talked about the midlife crisis that men and women have, particularly that are in marriages and in families, because they've been disconnected so long, they start unraveling. They can no longer continue to put this facade or this pretend person up that they've been playing. They haven't been truly being vulnerable, which allows them to connect. So they unravel because deep inside as humans, we need to feel belonged and connect with other people. But if we're playing this game of not being vulnerable or allowing shame to have control, we're going to break down at some point. It's no different than a car. If your car needs to take premium gas and you've been putting regular gas in it, at some point that car is going to break down, right? It's the same thing with us. At some point we're going to break down because we don't have a connection. We don't have a connection to other people. We allow ourselves to disconnect because we don't allow ourselves to show up and have the courage. It takes courage to be honest. It takes courage to be vulnerable. So for those that allow shame to immensely control their life, it is based off of fear. It's based off of fear. We all deal with fear. But as I always say, if you have fear, do it anyway. You're going through fear, do it anyway. Because you're going to let fear control you, or you're going to control it, right? Are you going to keep yourself from connecting to other people? Which is a human need. Connection and belonging is a human need, okay? It says we have to be able to talk about how we feel, what we need and desire. And we have to be able to listen with an open heart and an open mind. The more vulnerable you are, the more open you are when somebody else has the courage. When somebody else has the true courage. I want y'all to hear me. When somebody has the courage to be honest about what's going on inside of them, you got to have respect for that. Period, point blank. I don't care if it makes you uncomfortable. They had the courage to say it out their mouth. You know how many people in this society can't even be honest with themselves, let alone honest with other people? So when somebody is being vulnerable, or when you are being vulnerable, that is courageous. That is courageous. To allow yourself to live a life of shame based off of gender stereotypes or based off these gender categories is living a life in fear. It's living a life in fear. So when you allow yourself to be vulnerable, when you allow yourself to love, when you allow yourself to give, when you allow yourself to show up and be yourself, you are courageous. When you hide behind that, when you don't open up, when you put these walls up and protect, I don't want to feel the rejection. When you're doing all of that stuff, you are not allowing yourself to connect with another person. Okay? You're not allowing yourself to connect. And then you're living out of fear. You're letting shame and fear control your life. So I want y'all to think about that. Anytime somebody is open with you, somebody is being transparent and honest with you, I want the first thing in your mind is to be like, wow, that takes courage. That takes courage. It takes courage to love somebody. It takes courage to show up and be seen despite what the world has to say. That takes courage. So I respect it. I respect it. I respect it. And I've always had a respect for people that were able to be themselves against societal norms. I didn't understand why. I just knew they doing stuff nobody else can do. the things that go against what the norm is doing, I've always respected those people because I've always felt like they have courage. But now I'm really understanding on a whole nother level. They're not letting shame control their lives. Because there's a whole bunch of other people that's doing the same thing that they're doing behind closed doors. They're hiding themselves because they don't have the courage to show up and be seen, right? You can choose to be scared or choose to be brave. Be brave. That's been your mantra the past few months. Yes, be brave. Be courageous. Be courageous. Be courageous. Because each time you do it, you get better and better at it. Each time you do it, you feel more secure in yourself. Each time you do it, you understand connection more. You understand vulnerability more. You understand that somebody else's reaction is not tied to you being vulnerable. How they react has nothing to do with you. You showing up and having courage and they react in a certain way, it's not about you, it's about them. That goes back to the 4 agreements. Don't take it personal because it's not about you. It's not about you at all, how they react. But the fact that you had the courage to do it, that's a big deal. I had a conversation with a friend about something that I'm ashamed about, and I was going to brush it off like I normally do. But I opened up to her and was transparent. I had a frog in my throat in the beginning, but I felt so much better afterwards, right? Because the shame is not controlling you no more. It sets you free. That's living a life of wholeheartedness. It's living a life where you are truly happy. You're truly in control. You're not letting shame. You're not letting guilt. All that other stuff, blame, you not letting those thoughts in your mind be repeating. You shut them down. You shut them down, and it's a peaceful place. I know I've been in this place. And when I have any of those gremlins that try to come up, I'm like, we're not doing this today. Let's go to those conversations. She had a nice breakdown of conversations, right? Of what people say. She said, practicing the second element of shame resilience is critical awareness. I always talk about expand your consciousness, expand your awareness, because when you're aware, you can make an adjustment. Basically, they can choose consciously to play along with those thoughts or to not play along with the thoughts. But you have to be aware. When you're aware, you can make a different choice. You don't allow the emotions. You don't allow the shame. You don't allow those automatic negative thoughts, also called as ants, to control your life. You make a decision to control your life, right? So it says a man, for example, practicing shame resilience, right? The shame inside the man's head, the ant says, I'm not supposed to get emotional when I have to lay people off. Because, according to gender roles, men aren't supposed to show emotions, right? So that's what the gremlin says in his mind. That's a domestication. If you want to go back to the 4 agreements that we read, that's a domestication. That's how society domesticated. It told him in order to be a man or to be masculine, you're not supposed to have emotions. When reality, humans are emotional, right? So this man practicing shame resilience, this is what it looks like. The thought comes, but this is what it looks like when he's aware and practicing shame resilience. His response to that is, I'm not buying into this message. I've worked with these guys for 5 years. I know their families. I'm allowed to care about them. I'm allowed to care about them, right? So, shame whispers into the ear of a woman who's out of town on business. You're not a good mother because you're going to miss your son's class play. That's what it says. That's what the ant says, the gremlin, and she calls it the automatic negative thought. The domesticationist calls so many different things, but it's all one and the same, right? She replies, I hear you, but I'm not playing that tape today. My mothering is way bigger than one class performance. You can leave now. She knows her worth. She knows herself. She knows that she's still a woman. She's still feminine. She understands who she is and she stands in that. She doesn't allow society to define it for her. She knows what she does day in and day out. She knows she puts her very best. The other 4 agreement, what is it? Do your best, right? Do your best. So, let me see what y'all saying. This is why I talk to myself now and talk it out and make sure I ask why and understand why I'm feeling this way. Talking to yourself is good. When I see people talk to themselves, I admire it. I really do admire it. When I see people talk to themselves, they used to tell you, oh, if somebody talking to themselves, they're crazy. No, they're not crazy. I want you to talk to yourself. Have a conversation with yourself. Are you being honest with yourself? So then you can have a conversation with others, right? You understand what's going on with yourself. You understand those thoughts that's going on with you, right? Right. Okay, so it says women who feel shame when they don't feel heard or validated often resort to pushing and provoking with criticism. That's the mean girls. Y'all remember the mean girls when you was in grade school? Y'all remember those mean girls? Tell me if you remember the mean girls or if you were the mean girl in grade school. Because it says women who feel shame when they don't feel heard or validated, right, often resort to pushing and provoking with criticism. It doesn't mean that they have to have the validation or have be heard by the person who they're criticizing. Let's take it back to the grade school when you had the mean girls, right? When you had the mean girls, a lot of those mean girls, a lot of those people that was bullies weren't being validated at home. They weren't being heard at home. Their parents were ignoring them. They didn't feel belonging in their family. The parents may have been going through something that allowed them to disconnect in some form or fashion, which means that they didn't feel heard or validated, so they resort to pushing and provoking with criticism. Whether it's somebody at their emotions, they really feel like, oh my God, I'm not heard. Nobody cares about me. They ain't paying me no attention, so they be mean, right? That's the most common. So when you see women that are being critical, it's a shame trigger that's happening. It's a shame trigger, okay? So understand that. Men in turn who feel shame when they feel criticized for being inadequate. Now, this inadequacy may not be something that you actually did or somebody actually did. It just may be that something is not lining up to those long stereotypes or those things that's in their mind, right? Based off those gender roles, right? So men in turn who feel shame when they feel criticized for being inadequate either shut down or come back with anger. Okay. Hold on one second, y'all. Listen to the music. I have somebody at the door. That you say when you so easily regret it next day. See, that ain't right. 'Cause I was dying for this love, this love. Yeah, I was dying for your love, your love. So tell me, baby, do you want me like I want you? Even if you did, you wouldn't say I know you. Some nights I even think about if I should call you. 'Cause I thought you were the one. 'Cause I was dying for this love, this during the book, I went back to a time as a little girl. Yeah, I was dying for your love, your love. It was just about the shame or whatever you experienced with the person, right? And it's because you were hurt, you were rejected. So let me tell everybody else to jump on this board, okay? So if you ask us today what we believe is the key to our relationships, right? The answer would be vulnerability, love, humor, respect, shame-free fighting, and blame-free living, which means is we're not going to fight with shame. That's dirty. That's dirty. We're not fighting with shame. We're not doing that, right? Because we know what shame feels like. So even though we don't agree right now, even though we may not be on the same page right now, doesn't mean we're going to do shame fighting. It doesn't mean that we're going to do blame fighting, because the reality, most people's intentions is not necessarily bad intentions. Okay? So, having the conversations, being vulnerable in the conversation, having that connection, right? Have that connection. So, we often don't realize is that perpetrating shame is equally as painful, and no one does that with the precision of a partner or a parent. These are the people who know us best, who bear witness to our vulnerabilities and fears. Thankfully, we can apologize for shaming someone we love, but the truth is that those shaming comments leave marks. And shaming someone we love around vulnerability is the most serious of all security breaches. Even if we apologize, we've done serious damage because we've demonstrated our willingness to use a sacred information as a weapon. That part. I'm not gonna go into where I want to go into shame is equally as painful. That means if I'm going to be shaming somebody, that's equally as painful as me feeling shame. And no one does it with precision, such as a partner or parent. And this is because these people know us the best and who bear witness to our vulnerability and fears. We've allowed them to see us. We've shown up a bit of team, right? We've been vulnerable. And then somebody takes it and turns it around and uses it as a weapon. That does serious damage. Even if you do apologize, it does damage. It does damage because it disconnects you. Just as much as you aren't having the courage to show up and be seen causes disconnection, you shaming the other person causes disconnection. Right? We know what shame feels like. But we shouldn't want to inflict it on anybody else. We know what it feels like. You can be angry, you can be hurt, you can have these emotions, but guess what? Show up in them. Show up in the emotions. I feel immensely hurt. I am triggered. I am hurt. What is the truth? Instead of fighting with shame, show up. What are you feeling? What are you experiencing? What are you feeling and what are you experiencing? You're feeling, let down. You're feeling triggered about something that happened years ago. You're feeling other things. Show up as that. That's the real you. That is the real you. That's where the connection happens. That's where the connection happens. You've done serious damage because you demonstrated the willingness to use sacred information. When somebody shows up with very sacred information and vulnerability, and it took them courage now. It took them courage to show up like that. You use that information as a weapon. You are definitely disconnecting yourself. That person is not. How are they going to be comfortable around you again? You can apologize, but how? How can they trust again that you're not going to use them having courage against them? They would have to have some serious shame to not take it on. They would have to be very secure in themselves and done the work on themselves to not take it on and continue to have an unconditional love. It's very, very damaging to relationships. Very, very damaging. Okay? And that's why the last, section of this chapter is being real. Become real. Understanding the list and what they mean is critical importance to understanding shame and cultivating resilience. When you understand those 12 shame categories, you understand how women shame and how men shame. That's how you cultivate shame resilience. That's when you recognize it in yourself. That's when you're able to have self-talk and say, hope you're not doing this today. Okay? Right? And then you understand it in somebody else. And as you build that, right? So even let's just say a partner or parent does.
I ain't gotta tell you what the rims look like. Look, I'm gripping wood like a motherfucker.
And that's when you can
She asked me to a friend ride. Kelly wanna have a drink. And Shani wanna pop pills all night. Look, don't be fucking with my tape, Dad. You gon' listen to this Marvin. You gon' listen to this Bloodstone.
They're having a hard time.
Oh, y'all niggas want that Barry White. Well, I don't really fuck with that right there. That can make a nigga act up right there. But go and get your rocks off, boo. No, I don't really do all that, but it's more for you. I'm far from a pimp, but I'm close to you. You fucking with an old soul twice removed. My pops used to work up on the fighter jets. Maybe that's the reason I be through. Now who the fuck called me a player?
Hurt people.
I ain't one of these young niggas out here sweating for a pay stub. I'm a coach. I'ma teach these bitches how to lay up. Now most of y'all can't do shit, but all my chicks cook grits. I roll a spliff at the same damn time. You ain't lived long enough to have a bitch this fine.
I agree with
now
you.
If you don't mind, if I call you a bitch,
but it's a practice. Right?
It's cause you're my bitch. And as long as no one else call you a bitch, then there won't be no problems. Now, if I call you a trick, it's cause you paid rent. And as long as you don't call it 6, then there won't be no problems. Walk with me now. Shit, keep it 300, I ain't even gotta hit it. All she wanna do is watch a real nigga winning. Look me in my eye, there'll be no sin. Got a whole lot of women, all of them with it, yes Lord. My mama said don't trust these hoes, boy, be about your new story. Now my mama told me that, why the fuck would I listen to you? Yes Lord. You never go broke chasing riches, but you might go broke chasing every little stank asshole with a tongue piercing. Now, if I call you a bitch, it's It's cause you my bitch. And as long as no one else call you a bitch, then there won't be no problems. Nah, if I call you a trick, it's cause you pay rent. And as long as you don't call out 6, then there won't be no problems. Walk with me now.
So in the midst of your hurt,
keep it 300, I ain't even gotta hit it.
I'm not lovable.
All she wanna do is watch a real nigga winning.
I don't belong. So I'm gonna be ashamed.
There'll be no simping.
Right?
Got a whole lot of women, all of them with it.
Yes, Lord. It makes it very easy for you to see others and see yourself and be aware. Okay? Remember, please, if y'all need to write it down, remember, shame is the fear of disconnection. The fear that we are unlovable and don't belong. But when you put words around shame, it can't control your life subconsciously. When you're speaking and being transparent, it can't control your life. If you haven't talked about some shame, if you're not being transparent, and you don't have to talk to people you know, you can talk to professionals. There was research done that says if you write 15 to 20 minutes a day about your shame or traumatic event, that there was less doctor's visits. It says that also less doctor visits, let me go back to it so I can quote it correctly. Let's see. It says shame thrives on secret keeping. When it comes to secrets, there's some serious silence behind those 12-step program. You're only as sick as your secret, right? It says the research team found that the act of not discussing a traumatic event or confiding into another person could be more damaging than the actual event itself. Conversely, when people share their stories and experiences, their physical health improved, their doctor visits decreased, and they show significant decreases in their stress hormones. Right? The act of writing about traumatic experience for as little as 15 to 20 minutes a day for 3 to 4 days can produce immeasurable changes in the physical and mental health. Emotional writing can also affect people's sleep habits, work efficiency, and how they connect with others. Shame resilience is a practice. It's a practice. So not only having those conversations, writing about those traumatic things. Like Tiara said, she opened up and she said she had a lump in her throat. But the more she starts talking, she won't have that. I don't remember the last time I experienced a lump in my throat because I've been practicing shame resilience. I've been having those conversations. I've been having the courage to show up. Because you showing up and being vulnerable is not disrespectful. It's not wrong. Right? You showing up as you are is not a bad thing. It's being real. The last section of chapter 2. Being real. Okay? So remembering that shame is the fear of disconnection. It's the fear of unlovable. It makes it easy to see what's going on in others and what's going on in yourself. Right? Right. We're going to find our way out of the shame and back to each other. Vulnerability is the light. Courage is the light. So the path is going to be, that's the path is going. But how you see your way down that path is by having courage. Courage is the light to see where the path is going and how it shows you direction and connect with each other. Set down those lists that we're supposed to is brave. To love ourselves, to support each other in the process of being real is perhaps the greatest single act of daring greatness. Not only are you showing up and being seen and practicing shame resilience, you're showing up for those around you who are also practicing, who are also having transition, who are also wanting to show up and be real. You're supporting them. You're supporting them just like you support yourself. It's very important, right? It's very, very important. Once you become real, you can't be ugly, except to people who don't understand. Once you become real, you can't be unlovable, except to those who don't understand. Once you become real, you can't not belong, except to those who don't understand. No, I just want to say that again. Once you become real, you can't be ugly. You're only ugly to people who don't understand. And that's not your responsibility to explain it to them. Okay? Once you're real, you can't be unlovable. And if you are, it's to people who don't understand. Once you're real, you have to belong. You only unbelong vulnerable. It takes courage, it takes courage, it takes courage. So always think about the courage other people are having and that you're having when they're being transparent and when they're being vulnerable and showing up and being real. And as that saying goes, real recognize real, right? Real recognizes real. So you respect those who are being vulnerable. You respect those who are being shame resilient because real recognize real. You know they're showing up and being who they truly are. You know it's not fake. And the real recognizes, right? Real recognizes. It was one thing I did want to go back to real quick before the IG cuts me off. When he was talking about the disconnecting. Woo, woo, woo. Disconnection. When men, when it's, oh, where is it? Here it is. No, it's not. That's not what it is. I don't know where it's at. But when she's talking about those lists for men, and for men to be masculine, they have to have a disdain for homosexual men. And she said that for you to belong to a group, if they say for you to belong to this group that you have to have disdain for another group, that is power and control. It's power and control at its fullest, okay? At its fullest. So if you are part of a group and it's telling you to disdain another group, that's a group of power and control. That ain't a group of realness. That ain't a group of showing up and being yourself and accepting you for who you are. They're trying to control and have power. So anytime you're looking at an organization or looking at a group, understand that dynamic. If they're telling you to disdain another group, whether it's religious, spiritual, church, at your job, within the family, a group, they say, hey, you belong to this group and you disown or dislike the other group or other person. That is the underlying indication of wanting power and control over people. You don't want to be part of that group. That's not, you're actually not feeling belong. When you're disconnecting, they're forcing you to disconnect in terms of belonging. The only way you belong is by connecting. And if these people are trying to disconnect, that ain't true disconnection. Okay? I mean, true connection. It's not true. It's not real. So, Brene Brown was just saying, I'm appreciative, I'm thankful and grateful for her. I'm thankful and grateful for the research that she's done. Continue to research and put it in this book. Sharing it with us so that we can evolve to a world where if we become shame resilient and we can live a wholehearted life, a life of abundance and happiness and good emotions and good feelings, right? Just good feelings. So I'm very thankful to her. I'm appreciative to her. I really am. I'm thankful that she allowed God to use her. I'm thankful that she allowed her calling to come through because it's changed my life, and I know it's changing other people's life, and I'm enjoying how my life is changing, and I'm enjoying how I see other people's life change. So I'm very appreciative of her. Very thankful, very grateful. Very thankful, very grateful. So tomorrow is prayer live, right? Make sure you submit your prayer requests. Tonight I'm doing a members only live on my Patreon account. If you are a member, go subscribe now. Click the link in my bio on Instagram. Then click the link that says sold and sign up. For those that are watching this on YouTube, you'll see the link below where you can sign up to my Patreon account, or if you go to my channel, the Patreon link is there. And you can sign up to my member only lives, which are phenomenal. I have monthly lives. I put affirmation blessings, prayers, meditations, rituals. We do rituals together. I go on live. It's a great experience. So if you want to be a part of the community, you want to be a part of that, go ahead and sign up. We're doing a private live tonight. I'll together when we argue. It's a powerful prayer, right? Powerful prayer, right? Also, almost forgot, we still in the month of September, which is the month of blessings. Be a blessing, receive a blessing, allow yourself to be surrounded by blessings. So for everybody that purchases a service, purchases product that includes the subscription, so all of my Patreon members are put in a drawing to win a $100 Amazon gift card. Okay? $100 Amazon gift card. And if you purchase more than one thing from me, you get put in a drawing more than once. Okay? And that's purchases that I was September 1 to September 30th, October 1st, when I was announced the winner. Amazon gift card. And y'all know y'all be shopping with me. Okay? That's what I just got delivered. I ordered the mattress. I know y'all gonna take advantage of that. I know y'all do. So, I want y'all to have a beautiful day, an amazing day. I appreciate you all for being here. If y'all want to run this back, for those of y'all on IG, it will be on Instagram in the next hour. It will be here on Instagram within the next hour. If you missed the live, or if you want to listen to this live again, go to my YouTube channel. The link is in my bio. Go to my YouTube channel and you can rewatch. All my lives will be on YouTube from there on. Alright? Go through and watch them and enjoy them. And I'll see y'all tomorrow. Don't forget to do your prayer request for tomorrow.
It got something to do with
got it?
being a man
y'all have a great day, okay? Y'all have an amazing day.
To do with it.
An amazing day.
SSB is all bullshit.
Bye.
You know what love is. Say it would be one